Well, hello everyone. I feel like people are still coming in, but that's okay because I do want to respect Dr. Ashiko Jackson and Maria Reed's time. So, welcome everybody to BWICR Black Women in Clinical Research for our monthly career discussion. This month, we are going to be talking about investigators. And just for those of you who aren't familiar with investigators, these are the leaders of your research team, right? We know about principal investigators, we have co-investigators. I like to just say investigators because I do believe they are leaders of the team. And that's how they're kind of recognized as such in federal regulations as well. So if you don't know me, I'm going to say my name really quick. My name is Tiffany Drummond. I'm pretty sure, again, from Wind Down Wednesday, you all know who I am. So I'm going to skip all my introduction. Just know my name is Tiffany, or you can call me Girl. I'm going to introduce my co-host today, who is Courtney. Courtney, you want to just say hello to the peoples?
Yes, sorry everyone. Hello. I am a little out of it today. The Texas allergies are getting to me, but it's okay because she's
You
soon.
look good.
I got the throat lozenge going, so we're ready. You all know me. I am, a very active member of Black Women in Clinical Research, and I'm also a CRA1 with PPD, part of Thermo Fisher. And I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to hear about what Dr. Jackson and Dr. Reed can tell us today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you don't notice, I also pinned someone else here. She's a special person in the room. Her name is Danielle Mitchell. You may or may not know her, but she literally created Black Women in Clinical Research. So I pinned her only so she could say a few opening words, and then I'm going to unpin her because she wants to disappear. So Danielle, if you'd like to come off mute for a little bit and kind of say a couple of words at the beginning, please.
Oh, okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Mitchell. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. I am excited to hear more about the sub investigator slash co-I, depending on where you are in the industry or whoever you work for. They usually say sub-I or co-I. So, thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Courtney, and I look forward to hearing more.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Danielle. I'll let you disappear in a minute, but I'm going to keep you here for these introductions. So, I first want to introduce Maria Reed, FNP, for those of you who don't know what that is, but she's going to tell you, family nurse practitioner. Hi, Maria, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you don't mind giving our audience a little information about you and your background and anything that you want to share with us this evening.
Okay. Well, hopefully everyone can hear me. Thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, first of all, Danielle, for creating a space for us to talk. Thank you, Tiffany and Courtney, for hosting this. I really appreciate it. And thank you I'm humbled to be on here. So, like they said, I'm Maria Reed. I am a family nurse practitioner. That's what FNP stands for. I've been a registered nurse for about 20 years. I have been a nurse practitioner for close to 15 years. Um, I am located in the metro Atlanta area, originally from South Carolina, a little small town called Irmo that y'all probably never heard of, but I'm right outside of Columbia. So that usually I say I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. I'm the country girl who does not like fried chicken, collard greens. I'm the most uncountry country girl you ever meet. All my family is from Atlanta, Georgia, so we have a lot of country roots. I went to undergrad at Hampton University. I went to graduate school at Georgetown University. I worked as a floor nurse in acute care at Georgetown Hospital back in the day. And while I was working, I was going to school at night like a crazy person. And I got my FNP, of course, like I said, from Georgetown. After that, I moved up to New Jersey because there was this boy that caught my eye and we're still married and he wanted to go to Jersey. So after I graduated, I literally dabbled in every specialty. And that's the beauty of being a family nurse practitioner. It was so general. That's the purpose. So I was like, I'm going to be a gypsy and I'm going to see what this is and this is. So I literally first started, I guess we'll get into those questions, but I've been in urogynecology. I've been in internal medicine, psychiatry for the last 6 years, even though I'm an FNP. Interesting story. I loved it. Pain management, interventional radiology, and wound care. I was wound care certified as a nurse practitioner for many years. And then I am now in clinical research. I work at CinXL, which is one of several network sites. We were formerly known as iResearch Atlanta. We got bought. And yeah, I'm a wife to that New Jersey guy, and I have 5 kids, 12, they're all 12 and under. And that's my life.
That is amazing. I always say this, and I do believe it, that women can do it all. And then if I even go say Black women, we already know what that is. So your story is amazing, and thank you for sharing that with us and your personal story. And I know I follow a man, but where is he at? But that's something neither here nor there. Okay, but but thank you so much. I would like to now introduce Dr. Am I saying it right? Ashikwa? Is it Ashikwa? Okay, Dr. Ashikwa Jackson. I love that name. It's so unique. So if you can tell us a little bit about your professional background and any personal information that you would like to share with us this evening.
Yes, thank you all so much for having me. Thank you, Danielle, for reaching out. Thank you for Black Women in Clinical Research, which is an organization that really helped me along when I first got started in research, not really kind of knowing where to go. So thank you, Tiffany, Courtney. I'm looking forward to today. I am Dr. Ashikwa Jackson. I do have my doctorate in nursing practice. I'm a family nurse practitioner as well. I have been doing nursing for over, I think, 23 years. And super excited about nursing. I love all things nursing, all things healthcare. I love what I do on a regular basis. I got my doctorate, like I said, my master's, both from Arkansas State. I'm living Memphis, proud Memphian, Memphis, Tennessee, at home of Elvis, the best barbecue around. No, I ain't taking no questions on that, so don't ask. Um, Super excited. So I actually own Aviati Healthcare and Clinical Research. It's a research site in Memphis, Tennessee, in the heart of Memphis. It's in Hickory Hill, like 20 minutes away from everything in Memphis. The reason why I created that space was because of another nurse practitioner who owned a research site, and she kind of brought me in. So I've played several roles in research. I was very new to research. I actually went to, I think, high school with Renita Talley, and she just kind of showed me the ropes. I went to her site and I did every role. Like I did coordinator, I did regulatory, I did contract and budgets. She just kind of showed me, and we just worked from there. And then I created Aviati Healthcare, just out of a need, just not enough minorities, not enough African Americans, and I'm just right in the heart of Memphis. And that's kind of how and why I got started. I felt like Memphis was a perfect area. We don't participate. So I'm like, okay, I can do something. What can I do? And that's what I did. I started a site. It's been 3 years since I started, and it's had its ups and downs, but I'm super excited about it. Super excited where research is going and what Aviata can do to make a dent in it. And that, oh, and I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I have 3 children. I have 3 children, a 13-year-old who graduated 8th grade today. Yay, I have a high schooler, pray, and then pray some more. And then I have twins, they're 10. So I have boy-girl twins. So I'm just excited about them and spending as much time as I can with them.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And yes, I did know that you were the mother of twins, but mother of 3. Also, you didn't mention it, but I'm gonna do it for you. That I know that you are a member of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. So I do wanted to just put that out there for you. I like to make sure. I like to make sure that I give everybody their props. So thank you both so much again for being here. So we're actually going to kind of jump into the first question, which you already kind of touched on. So I'll start with you, Dr. Jackson. I find that a lot of nurse practitioners, especially in my experience at the site level, typically become investigators on our clinical trials just because they're always doing clinical work in the clinic and they see all of our patients. So what drew you from your clinical practice to wanting to go into the actual research? So I'll start with Dr. Jackson, and then Maria, you can totally answer.
Yes, great question. So I've always been interested in research, like even from the beginning of my nursing career, I was always interested in research. I remember applying for, I don't even know how many jobs, and I was a new nurse. I had been charged nurse. I really thought I had it going on, but like I got rejection after rejection after rejection. And I'm like, why? Like I had no research experience. So I kind of just put it to the side and just said, well, maybe research isn't for me. A couple of years later, I met someone in research, and they were kind of talking about research again. So then I kind of was like, oh, I love research again. I didn't really stop loving it, but just trying to get my foot in the door. And I just didn't know the right people to get in. So once I ran into the young lady who's a nurse practitioner who had a site, she closed her site after she trained me, but she just kind of showed me the ropes. I just said, look, I've always been interested in research and I really want to learn about this. And she said, listen, if you really want to learn about it, she said, give me 3 weeks. No, she said, give me 2 weeks. And I'll teach you everything you need to know about research. And I said, well, give me 3 weeks. Let me pray about it. Let me see if this really the direction I need to go in. And from that day forward, she showed me the ropes. And I think that's what Black women in clinical research is all about, helping someone else. It's not about competition. It's not about, I didn't know how to get in and she showed me a way. She showed me a path to get in. And I'm super excited and excited about, where I am and what we're doing at Aviati as a sub-investigator. So I kind of play all the roles just because I own the site as well. But that's how I got into it. And that's where I am now.
I love it. Okay, and Maria, how did you fall into this work, or what drew you to it?
That's a great question. I literally fell into it. So my story is different from Dr. Jackson. Oddly enough, I had no clue about clinical research. I mean, I knew you needed a drug, it had to go through research, and voila, you take it. But then when you find this, it's literally, maybe it's me, it's like a different planet, right? Clinical research, once you get in it, you're like, wow, I didn't know it existed. So I was working, seeing patients in mental health psych, and I had a colleague that left, unbeknownst to me, she was in clinical research, she was a rater. So I'm sure that we all know about a rater. So she would text
You
me.
can explain it to us though, for those who don't know what's a rater.
Okay. So a psychometrician or a rater is someone who works usually in CNS trials like Alzheimer's or mental health trials, and they do like depression scales or schizophrenia type scales and to gather data. So a lot of these CNS trials, their primary endpoint is changing those scales to see if their, the depression rating goes down. There's, schizophrenia, their negative symptoms or positive symptoms goes down. So anyway, we were working together. I got a text probably every 6 months for 2 years. Hey, you want to be in clinical research? And I politely declined because I had no clue what that was. I was in a comfy position. And so I said no. Eventually, it was the right time, the right place, the right day. And I said, okay, let me see. So I went in for interviews. Still didn't have a clue. I was being interviewed to be a rater and a sub investigator. So, and I got the job. I had no experience, but put on a good face. What we do, we interview the best we can. Like, oh, I can do all the things. So I fell into it, and here I am. Later, I am still a rater / sub investigator at my current, job.
Perfect. That's a great answer. It kind of leads me to my next question, but you kind of already answered as well. So I'm going to be asking the next few questions, then turn it over to my girl Courtney, because again, I also often tell research nurses, and when they're bedside nurses and they want to go into research, I say it's very different. They don't really realize the documentation that's involved and things like that. So can you kind of explain to us, and I'll leave with you, Maria. What's the biggest difference? Because when you say, I don't have any experience, I'm pretty sure my audience finds that hard to believe because you have so much clinical experience. So as an investigator, how can you differentiate how that's different than if you were coming in as, a clinical FNP in your service?
That's a great question. So I was very much geared for having so much clinical experience in treatment gear, like treatment, you see a problem, you identify what the issue is, and you treat it to correct it, right? Whereas in clinical research, you're really observing the data, you're observing what's happening, and then the overarching theme is safety. So your main goal is the safety of the participant or the subject, as some people call them. So that would be the main difference. And a huge hurdle that I'm I've gotten over, but it's still in the back of my mind. Like, you see a problem, you just want to write the script or give, suggestions on, okay, we can handle this. Like, don't worry. But no, you have to sit there, observe it, carry out the very complex protocol. And so you're following someone's rules. It's less of what you want to do and more of what you're supposed to do. And you mentioned, Tiffany, detail oriented. Oh my gosh. I thought I was detail oriented. I thought I'm people say I'm type A. I'm not, I don't think so, but I'm a Virgo, and Virgos are like, but clinical research is like literally a whole new level of being perfect in your documentation as you can be. So those are the main two things I would say, not treating, just observing, monitoring safety still, and, being well documenting everything.
Absolutely. Documentation. For those of you out there in the audience who are regulatory, we already know how that goes. And for my clinical research coordinators, clinical research associates, CTAs, all of that, we understand documentation. Okay, I know we do. So absolutely. So what I would ask you, Dr. Jackson, is can you give me, even in your specific, I'm not sure of your therapeutic area, because I know you've been in a vast number of areas. If you want to expand on maybe one clinical trial that you are part of as an investigator, and what is a specific role that you have that's different than you just being Dr. Jackson, a clinician? What's something that you know that you do that's different than you being the investigator on a clinical trial?
Yes, thank you. I think Maria just she said it perfectly about treatment and observing. Like that's a hard, transition. But for me, I would say everybody that comes in, I want them to feel from patient recruitment, I want them to feel like not only have I said something that they can use, whether they sign up for the trial or not, it's all about education for me. It's all about planting a seed. So we all recognize and realize that clinical trials are not for everyone and not everybody's going to sign up. But if I can plant a seed and maybe you share this, like, I didn't realize that drugs go through clinical trials. I didn't realize that infant formulas went through clinical trials. So I do a lot of infant formula trials, but we're a family. We also do women's health. But what I would say, what makes us different, or what kind of my role in it is just to make sure that I'm going to say mothers, because we're doing several infant trials right now, but that moms feel like they've been heard. So if it's another clinical trial, I just want people to feel like they've been heard. I really, when I started aviatic research, aviatic healthcare and clinical research, my mom said she went to the doctor one time and she was never touched. And she was very, hurt by that. And it was something that she needed to be touched on. And while clinical trials aren't treatment, I still want you to feel like you've been touched, like you've been heard. So that's what I want everybody to leave with. Even like on the phone, they may say, well, I don't, this is not a good fit for me. I don't want to let my baby try this. Which is okay, but we want to say, hey, you're doing a good job. Hey, what you're doing matters. Hey, can we do anything to help? So we're not just a clinical research site, but we're also a site for the community. Where we have a lot of needs, and we try to assess the community needs as well as people being involved in clinical trials.
It's so good that you say that, even about being touched. I've never heard it shared that way before, but I do know that people in the community, even, and I say people of color, but that could be someone who's of Asian descent or Latin American descent, is that when they see someone who looks more like them than not, they do feel some sort of comfort in knowing that. And so with that being said, I want to ask you as well, what is your most rewarding aspect of being an investigator? And I'll start with you, Maria. What have you found to be the most rewarding for you when you are dealing with your patients who become subjects or become participants? And how does that make you feel and want to keep you moving forward in this role?
Yeah. I see the rewards every day, honestly. They may be subtle and some are huge. The obvious answer would be seeing a IP or drug come to market that I played a small role in. Like, I did that I can help this subgroup of people who are in need to treat this disorder. So that's one reward. that I feel. Also, I know Dr. Johnson's saying just seeing people where they're at, allowing them to be heard. Although it may not be treatment, it's a resource for people who may not have access to care. So, we pre-screen, we screen patients. They may screen fail. We may have labs, and there may be a lab abnormality that they would not have known about had they been in our clinical trial, and then we can refer them appropriately. Otherwise, they're out in these streets with glucose is through the roof, and I'm like, hey, so those are two of the rewards that I've seen. I recently had a patient was in a schizophrenia trial. Young kid, recently diagnosed. Parents, hadn't really accepted the diagnoses. They didn't have any resources, were hospitalized, discharged from, a psych hospital. And then we ended up with the patient. So went through the patient was able to go through the clinical trial. And at the end, we connected them with resources. They came back maybe a week later. Parents were so thankful that they had resources, now have a psychiatrist, now are starting to file for SSI, going to have a social worker, going to be involved in the community. So when I see patients like that, I know I have a purpose.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people, especially in our community, don't understand a benefit or aspect of clinical research is the extra specialized care that you get. That a lot of times they wouldn't get in their normal care. So what about you, Dr. Jackson? What have you found to be, and I think for you, because you started your own clinical site in the Memphis community because you saw an unmet need. So what have you found to be the most rewarding one besides starting this, that it's kind of rare in the country? What have you found to be most rewarding for you as an investigator?
I feel like the patient interaction and the education that I provide. I did have, I'll talk about two things. Like I did have one baby to come in, the baby had a heart murmur. We were able to find that and refer baby back to pediatrician. So mom was really grateful for that. And then I had another time where a mom called us for 3 weeks straight. She had been in a clinical trial before and she wanted to be in this trial. So it was on pause, but she called us 3 weeks straight trying to get in the trial. So really what was most rewarding is not only her getting in the trial, but she was like, I really needed that money at this time in my life. And just the support she received at that time really made a difference. And she still calls us today. And this was probably 3 years ago. She still calls us today. She still does updates on her baby. So that, that makes you feel like, man, I'm waking up. I'm like, I didn't go to sleep last night. I'm doing all this. It makes it worthwhile. It makes it like, okay, I'm doing something that makes a difference.
That is crazy because what I normally hear is how hard it is to get people to go in clinical trial, especially people of color. So for someone to call you and then follow up with you about their child, and I do think in maternal health, especially, that there is that kind of extra bond that I don't think we see with adults. But on the flip side of that, because I had to ask, so what is the most challenging aspect that you see as an investigator? I'll start with you, Dr. Jackson, and maybe if you can give us an aspect, one on starting it as a sole investigator, of starting your own research site. What's the most challenging thing you've seen with that? And also if you can kind of touch on what's the most challenging in your patient population that you see when it comes to being an investigator and getting your enrollment on target?
Yeah, great question. So I say starting a site, the most challenging just would be like all aspects of just being an entrepreneur. So you know how to care for patients, you know how to, whatever your profession or whatever you're doing, you know how to be a coordinator, you know how to do budgets and contracts, but just the day-to-day, the operations, the taxes, the all that, just doing it all by yourself. It That was the most challenging for me, just bringing everything together. And then like clinical research is different, healthcare is different from like someone owning a restaurant or a nail salon. So I have a group of entrepreneur friends, but it's a little different. So I think just pulling the pieces together of just being a site owner, knowing what to do and when to do it. That's what I would say the most. And then I would say Also training, because I train my staff. So finding the time to train, I see patients. So it's a lot, but we know with training, we know with people, we know we're in a people business. Either you pay for it now or you pay for it later. It's no other way around it. So that has been my biggest challenge, especially with playing multiple roles at a site, just finding the time, and putting the time in to make sure that people are trained, that they do represent your site and represent it well, and to make sure that we're getting, people in trials. I know when I first started, like it was just, I can remember when I first started, I remember me talking to Renita, the one who trained me, and I said, I never thought I wouldn't be able to get patients. I mean, it was like that never crossed my mind. Like, why would I not have patients?
Right.
So that was just, once I really just kind of settled in with that, and I figured out a plan, and I started recruiting better and just getting out in the community. So we do a lot of partnerships with other providers as well. So we have several different partnerships. They're not necessarily PIs or sub-Is, but they do send us referrals for our patient recruitment. And I love that because they know we're here and we tell them what trials we're doing. And usually they send us patients. So it's really not, it's much better with that because we actually educate providers and offices and people that don't necessarily qualify for the trial, but they know more about research because we've built those partnerships.
Absolutely. And recruitment and retention, for those of you out there looking for a career, pharma companies invest a lot in recruitment and retention efforts because that is, we need the data for that. Maria, so what have you found to be the most challenging as an investigator, whether that is recruitment and retention or even like, Dr. Jackson said, your staff, which we'll get into training later about that, what you look for. What have you found to be the most challenging for you?
Okay, so several challenges, but the most would be, it's still a great role, but there are several challenges. Let's be real about it. We do a lot of phase ones, so I'm a sub investigator on a lot of phase one. So with phase ones, they're very complex. Usually the timelines are pretty fast. They have several of them have cohorts, so meaning they want to enroll, let's say 5 or 8 at one time. We have an inpatient unit that I run, so we'll see all 8 at one time, testing IP. We're checking vitals every 30 minutes. We're doing ECGs every hour. We're monitoring drips or whatever. So the most challenging would be to kind of stay on top of complex protocols, knowing stopping criteria. That's a huge thing. So within a protocol, for those who may not know, there is like a hard rule. If a patient reaches this criteria, whether it be labs or a scale or something, you're to stop IP, So again, safety, managing AEs, managing SAEs, managing ECSIs and ABCs and all of the things that are serious, just managing it, reporting it in a timely fashion. Just the complexity is my main challenge. But I learn every day. I have something that I have to overcome or investigate or write a medical monitor to figure out. But I learn from it. So I welcome the challenges, but that's my main challenge.
Yeah, especially for phase one, for those of you out there who aren't familiar, most of you are, but some of you are new to clinical research. Phase ones are just very complex because they are usually first in human intervention. Whatever that intervention is hasn't been done, only preclinical data has been around. And so for investigators, they really have to be on it because we're like hanging on to what they're like documenting and witnessing, right? Because, we haven't had that clinical data before for humans. So I want to thank you both for my half of the questions. I'm going to turn it over to my good co-host here, Courtney, and think of my own questions to ask and drop in the chat.
Thank you, Tiffany. Okay, so I just want to know, how do you all see the role of the investigator changing in the future? Do you see any changes happening at all? Do you anticipate that? I'll start with you, Dr. Reed.
Alrighty, so evolving. Oh, let's talk about technology, AI. It's gonna infiltrate, and I feel like we have to embrace it. So I think the protocols will become more complex. I think they're going to use sponsors are going to use more innovative technology, digital health. So in our studies, a lot of them we have to get medical records. Sometimes it takes forever. We have to do like 3 requests. I'm thinking in the future, a lot of interface. We can just log in. We'll have access if the patient or participant grants us access. So it's more real time data being um, information being gathered. I think, right now, lab turnaround takes a few days, maybe getting more real time information, patients wearing wearable devices, and you get real time, electronic data. And then I think also as a sub-I, there's no real sub-I certification, right? So I feel like there may be more professional development that they will require. All the things. It's coming down
Yeah.
the pipeline.
Yeah, I agree. The professional development piece, especially. What about you, Dr. Jackson? How do you feel? What do you see for the future of the investigator?
Yes, I totally agree with everything Maria said. We actually started off as a paper site. So so I can speak on it, I can preach on it, I can talk about it. So definitely, with virtual decentralized trials, I think the role definitely will evolve into more of that. I think data management as well, just technology. That's the biggest thing. I feel like, and then especially because we started off as a paper site, I think that'll probably be one of the biggest challenges for us in our role as sub investigators and principal investigators at my site.
Well, as someone who is constantly looking through patient data, I appreciate a paper record. I do. However, I am technology focused, so EMRs are like my bread and butter. I love it. So with that being said, what are some additional emerging trends? As I can tell that AI and technology are going to be some of those trends that we see coming in the next very soon, actually, right now until probably 2026 when we can really hone in on it. But what other trends do you see impacting the role of investigating teams?
I think too, like value-based care, determining the value of these new treatments for patient outcomes and cost effectiveness. Value-based care is definitely something that we're doing now, and just how it's affecting patient outcomes. So I think that's definitely something that we as PIs, sub-Is, definitely need to look into, and we'll have more of a role in going
Right.
forward.
Nice, nice. Maria, please, your insight.
I also agree. It was mentioned before about decentralized trials, more remote visits for patients. So that way, like I said before, we can meet them where they're at. We can eliminate that barrier of access, lack of transportation. So I see that. I worked on one decentralized trial. Still needs a lot of work, but I know that they're, working the kinks out of that.
I do think that decentralized trials is something that is definitely the main focus, especially now that we are really focusing on diversity, not just, racially, but, geographically, because you do have the urban, not well, the urban areas, but you have your rural areas as well that doesn't have as much access to healthcare. Which is why you guys are so important, especially your site, Dr. Jackson, because I do know that a lot of the patient population that I deal with, I can tell by looking through the data that if it wasn't for the clinical trials, a lot of these, kids, these teenagers, older people, they wouldn't get the proper care that they're supposed to get. So, that is going to be definitely a challenge, not just for the investigators, but for, CROs as well. As a CRA, I see it already coming, but I appreciate the challenge, and I appreciate having people like you two and everybody else here in this chat who are willing to accept the challenge, because you got to be crazy to accept this challenge. So we're all crazy together. So this one is specifically for Maria. As a site research network, is ConXL at the forefront of research?
I would hope we are. I mean, the good thing about being part of a network, I believe it's about 18 sites. So the reputation that they carry, conducting high quality clinical trials, a large network across the US, like you said, being able to reach different geographic locations, and being present in various therapeutic areas. So, from pain management to, we do a lot of, not a lot, but it's coming down the pipeline more, psychedelic trials that we're doing, which is so interesting for me. And like I said, phase ones, we're doing a lot of surgical trials, and we do a lot of psychiatric trials. So, being very diverse in our clinical trials, having a good reputation, having good network with a lot of the sponsors, so they know us. We've done trials before. They give us another trial, so that's huge.
I am definitely interested in the holistic trials that are going on now. So I myself am a Army veteran. I'm not sure if you all know, but I have been diagnosed with PTSD and, depression, anxiety, all of the things. However, because I am, a naturally, hippy dippy person, I would rather not have to take meds every day just to be able to function as a normal human being. So being able to hear that there are sites outside of, what I already hear going on inside of the government working on trials like that, it actually gives me a lot of different hope. And it does say that you guys are at the forefront, because nobody's talking about this stuff. The only information that we really have that is true is, stuff from the 40s, 50s, and 60s that people still don't want to acknowledge is real. So, if we got to give it to them again, we got to give it to them again. And I appreciate that. Now, I have another question for you. Have you had experience in research outside of being inside of a network, or have you always been inside the network of a network?
So prior to, I've always been before we were bought, we were just independent site.
Okay.
So, and then we were bought. So now we're part of a network.
Okay. So are there any major differences in between those two, being a single site versus being within a network?
We have a larger recruitment team, a bigger portal to get patients, more resources.
Mhm.
We are able to reach out to different networks if we have any questions or concerns. Sometimes we have the same trial. So it's like if they are having any issues or concerns, we can kind of share information. We can even share patient databases. They may not be right for this. Maybe that you can send them to this site. So those are kind of the main things versus being an independent. You're doing a lot of the grunt work yourself.
Right. And one other thing that a lot of people don't really realize either is that sometimes when you find yourself inside of a network and you have a subject that is transitioning to another state, it's easier to transition that subject to the other state and they're still a part of the trial. No harm, no foul, no interruptions in any of the visits or dosings. So that's a good aspect of it as well. Thank you so much for your insight on that. Now, this question is specifically for Dr. Jackson. So, with Aviati, what do you think separates you from other clinical sites around the country? I already know what I think it is, but what do you think it is?
So I feel like it's that personal touch. It's that family. It's what people feel from our site. Like we have people calling, and I don't even know how people are like the word is coming out, but it's not just about research. It's about community. It's about people. So I just love that people feel like they can call us for more than just a trial. And I'm happy that we're here to provide services. So then when we do need participants, it's not like give, I mean, take. we've given something, like we've given to the community. We want to be more, we want to build Memphis up. You know, Memphis may not have a great reputation, but like I'm born and raised in Memphis. Like I'm a proud Memphian wherever I go. I live in the suburbs, but I'm still gonna say I'm from Memphis. But I feel like it's that personal touch. It's that I want everybody to feel touched from the front door to out of the trial to even you know, after you've been in the trial. Like we still have people calling us, we still send out Mother's Day, happy Mother's Day. You know, we still try to stay connected with our patients.
That is so awesome. I definitely agree. That is the first thing that I thought about. And that is so important. I am from a small little hick town as well. And honestly, if it weren't for those hometown physicians that we trusted, we wouldn't go. We wouldn't go. And I was a child who had, childhood asthma growing up. So it was very important for my mom to be able to trust, the physician that we were going to, because we were Medicaid recipients. You can't really trust everybody who deals with Medicaid patients. So I appreciate you for sure. I'm not from Memphis, but I know they appreciate you. So keep doing what y'all are doing. So with that being said, we all know that clinical trials they don't work if your team doesn't work. So I'll start with you, Dr. Jackson. As someone who owns her own clinical research site, what is it that you look for in your team members when you are hiring?
Okay, yes. So I don't necessarily look for experience. I have a culture that I want people to adapt to. So I don't necessarily look at experience. I look at the person. I look at them being a team player. I look at detail oriented. I look at the ability to be able to multitask.
I'm moving to Memphis. Okay, go ahead.
Good communication skills. You know, I can teach research, but I need you to have that ability and want to learn. Like, I want you to be able to ask questions. I want you to have that curiosity, the ability to want to learn and want to do better. Like my team, not everybody wants to end up in research. Like that's not their end game. But what I'm trying to do is build you up to whatever you want to be. I don't want people to just one day say, oh, I wanted to be a nurse, or you could be a nurse, but like I wanted to be radiology. So let's get you to radiology. I do have a team member that wants to do radiology. Let's get you to radiology. How do we get there? What have you applied? What's the steps to application? Like I wanted to feel like family with my team as well. So if your end game is not clinical research, I don't want to hear that like just random, oh yeah, I'm going to such and such. No, what's your goals? And I ask them all the time, what's your goals? Are they the same? Have they changed? Like I meet with them on a regular basis. I really want them to learn the culture. If you can learn the culture, if I can teach you the rest, like we can get the rest of it. Main thing I would say is being able to be teachable. Like I don't want nobody, I know all the answers. It's not a good fit.
It's not a good look either, because you need to understand that every opportunity we have when we wake up is an opportunity to learn something. And if you can't learn nothing else, then what are you doing here exactly? Maria, I'm not sure if you're a part of your hiring team or not, but if you are, what are some things that you look for when you all are going through the interview process?
Yeah, so I am part of the leadership team at my site. When I was hired, and even though we are a network, we still function kind of independently in regards to our culture. That was one thing that our CEO was like, if we're bought, our culture remains the same. And so Dr. Johnson, you said it several times, culture is the key. You have to, when I was hired, and it's still the same, you had to read a book when you got hired. And the book was The Four Agreements. If you've never read the book, read it. It's really good, short read. So it has the 4 agreements are be impeccable with your word. So next one is don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions and always do your best. So they are very keen on that, and I've adopted that. So if you can tackle those 4 things, teamwork works. You know, another huge thing is communication. In research, you cannot over communicate. That's a huge thing. I need to know what's going on. You need to know what's going on, so we're all on the same page. So there's no mysteries. So those are the main things that we look for, and I look for in a team.
I love that so much. And I love the 4 agreements. That was one of the first books I read when I was started my healing journey, you know, my inner work. So, and it's probably something that I will be going back to this year because I need a little refresher, you know. So that is a very good book to focus on. And the fact that
On the
you're
back of my toilet. I put it on the back of my toilet. Literally, it's there. So if I get bored, I don't know why I would, but
No, it is just that good. It is something that you could just really pick up, and it is a short read and it's an easy read. You know, it's nothing too hard, nothing too difficult about it. And you know, being someone who knows the book, having your CEO tell everyone who is hired to read that book, it gives a different perspective to me about your workplace. It is a very, very mature, you know, understanding, accepting, agreeable, team working atmosphere that we would all love to be in. And I love that for you. But I will stop talking now. If there are any questions that anyone has, please feel free to drop them down in the chat. We have 10 minutes left, and I think this would be a great time to maybe ask, you know, if you're in the area of these 2 wonderful research leaders, you know, maybe ask if they hiring, if they know somebody who's hiring, if they could mentor you. Maybe we could set that up. Whatever you want, drop it in the chat. We'll ask it. Oh, Anita, would you like to ask your question? You came off of blank. Oh, no. Sorry. I didn't mean to call you out.
Yes, I was going to say you all can either drop it in the chat if you want to, or you can totally come off mute. You don't have to come off of your microphone. You don't have to do that. So while everybody's getting that together, I do have a question. I would like to know for both of you, because you know now that the FDA, I just went to a webinar on the FDA diversity plan guidance that came out. Thank you, Danielle, for linking me with that. But are you noticing that pharma companies or sponsors are not targeting you, but more active in your space and getting you to open clinical trials at your site? Or how is opening trials at your site? Do you have to really work at that, or are they more coming to you without having to do a lot of the work?
Well, I'll start. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're coming to me, but I will say, like, when I go to conferences, like once I say I'm a diverse site, and it's a lot of interest. It's definitely a lot of interest in that. I think the trials that I have gotten, they have been because of me being a minority site, definitely more diverse, and the recruitment that we're doing. I do see a lot more questions related to that. In the feasibilities, as well as, you know, new studies that we're pursuing. I do see the questions that's more around the diversity and the diversity plan as it relates to that. But I wouldn't necessarily say like I see them just running to me. I have met more people that were interested, but not necessarily closed the deal because of it.
Okay, great. We do have a question from the chat. Question is, how can we introduce more Black and Brown doctors to become investigators? Any ideas on how we can?
well, I think just awareness, right? Like for me, I didn't know this space existed. Just being out there, groups like this, you know, like an aha moment. Oh, really? I can be part of this space. I am blessed enough to one of the PIs at our site. She's a Black psychiatrist, and so I work a lot with her as well. All of our PIs are females, and so except one is a male. But yeah, I think it's awareness, just knowing that this community exists.
Yeah, I agree. Because I didn't know it existed either. I fell into it.
And I would just add too, for me, like no matter where I go, like if I go to the doctor's office or if I go to my kids' doctor's office, or if we see a specialist, the first thing I'm gonna say is, have you thought about research? And they're like, what you mean? So that opens up a conversation for my kid's pediatrician. She was saying she would maybe want to do this after she retired. But I just asked the question, even like when I told y'all we have community partners. So like we purposely go out, have these lunch and learns with providers, with doctors, letting them know about research. Now, some of them feel like it's a good fit, some don't. Some do have some misconceptions, and some, we're able to talk about it. And then at the end of the day, we still want to try to build that relationship, even if they're not PIs or sub-Is right now. Once again, plant the seed, so maybe later, but we have opened up the conversation regarding it.
Great. And I will say in this chat, for those of you who have not been able to transition into clinical research yet, it is a transition period. It might feel like it's not for you. I spent my first year really feeling like that it wasn't, but it is. It is a challenge. And really what it is more so you having to understand that you're coming into a new career. Yes, it is something that you know how to do, but it's done in a different way. And learning the ways of that way is what's really going to make it a lot easier, but it takes time. So those of you, whenever you can get in there, if you haven't gotten in there already, don't give up. Please, 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 we need you.
And Courtney, I'll say just to jump on the tail end of that, networking is huge. And this comes from someone who is a self-proclaimed introvert. Like, I don't like talking. I don't like, but you have to push yourself. And so even being here is pushing myself. Growing up, I wanted to be an orator. For those who don't know what that is, go around and give speeches. But I was so shy. And so I guess now it's like kind of, in a full circle that, you have to be comfortable talking to people. So write a message, hit send, and close your eyes and hope for the best. If you get no response, at least you did it. So I would say network. For those who are not yet where they want to be, reach out. There's no harm. There's no harm. If it doesn't turn out the way you expected it, at least you learned something.
That is very, very true. One thing my grandmother used to always tell us is closed mouths don't get fed, So just because one person doesn't respond doesn't mean another person is not going to respond. And they might just be busy. That's another thing that I've learned in this research field is that sometimes it does take 2 weeks for somebody to get back to you because there is a fire somewhere and it has to be put out right now. Okay, so delayed is not denied. Understand that, but start reaching out. We have a question here. I can't see your name. It says Zoom user, but you can come off mute if you'd like to ask your question.
Oh, it's Dr. Richmond. I keep forgetting to change that. So hello, everyone. So I am a PI in Houston, and Kannaquaze, Chicago as well. And one of the questions that I had, I believe it's for Dr. Jackson, is can you share a little bit about when you started your site, like some of the barriers that you had to overcome? And did you start with a patient panel already, or were your patients all kind of new to your research site?
Yes, thank you. So I started off as an independent research site. I did not have a patient panel. And we just kind of built from there. So the type of trials that we were doing, we definitely had to have partnerships. So that was really one of the biggest challenges, I would say, is because like I received the trial, but then I needed to get the patients. So that's really how we developed like that community partnership where we just started reaching out to every provider. First, we did our zip code. We just started reaching out to providers. Hey, this is what we're doing. Hey, can we get a lunch? Can we get a lunch and learn? Can we do breakfast? Can we do desserts? Like I was a small site. I didn't just funding, all that, you know, you have to take that into consideration. So we just started reaching out to different providers in the area first, and then we started expanding out in the Memphis area, just trying to get people to send us referrals. And now we're doing a little bit more at our site. We're doing weight loss as well as some other things at our site. So we do have more of a patient panel than we had when we first started, but we were just an independent research site. It's aviatic healthcare, but we were focusing on research, and now we do a little bit more, a few other things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a very good question. I know starting a site in and of itself is a lot of work, right? Because you're thinking entrepreneur and you're thinking, you know, investigator, and you're thinking hiring, and like your HR and all of those things together, right? Which is why building a team is so important. And also site networks, which is why I'm glad you're here, Maria, because I do believe site networks have a benefit that a lot of other sites do not have. Because again, like Courtney was mentioning, when people move, or even if they just feel like, you know, I'm in another area, like I need to be referred here because this location doesn't have that trial, but this other site network does have that trial. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the dot. I know that Dr. Ashikwa Johnson is going to have to leave. So I don't want to take up any more of your time. So I do want to thank you and Maria Reed. Thank you so much for coming on today, being here, being a part of BWICR, this monthly discussion, answering these questions that I know a lot of us wanted to ask. Is it okay if we give people your LinkedIn, your government LinkedIn? Is that all right? Okay, so, you know, we had a flyer going around, so look up their names and I can drop it in the chat as well for you. So Dr. Jackson, I know you have to leave, so if you have to go off, that's totally fine. Maria Reed, if you have any last words, please feel free before we tell everyone goodbye.
Again, just thank you for having me. This is an important discussion. We can't be gatekeepers, right? So share your knowledge. You know, the more the merrier. We need each other. Clinical research is huge and necessary. And again, I thank you all. You can hit me up. Like I said, I'm a mother of 5. It's the summertime, so I'm starting today. No more school, so I'm going crazy and working. So if you hit me up, that 2-week, you know, response may happen, and don't take it personally. One of the 4 agreements. Okay.
And I just want to say thank you all as well. It's definitely been an honor. I do want to say, like, you have everything you need. Sometimes we're doing stuff, but sometimes we have to just talk about it. I know I had a good friend that gave me that advice. I was real hush hush when I started my site, because honestly, I didn't want to fail. You know, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to fail. And as soon as I started talking about it, I'm telling you, people, oh, I believe in your vision. Oh, let me help you with this. Oh, let me do this. Oh, we going out of business. You need office furniture. So just remember, sometimes you have to reach out. You have to speak on it. You know, you have to, if you're trying to get into research or whatever you're trying to do, you have to speak on it. It can't be a solo event. You have to speak on it. And some people may not help, and that's okay too. At least you shared it and put it out there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Words of wisdom there. So again, I want to thank you all again. Courtney, as always, you're like my tag team partner right there. Thank you so much. Maria Reed, again, thank you. And keep doing what you're doing, because we need more people like you, physically, literally, spiritually, emotionally, and all those things, professionally in this space. And so again, I'm not going to take up your time. I'll be hanging around just for a little bit so I can keep the chat open for those who want to capture their LinkedIn. Or if you want to drop your LinkedIn, we can all connect together. I'm going to unpin you ladies, but feel free to jump off anytime you need. And I'll be sticking around for another couple of minutes. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. It was so nice to see you, Dr.
Thank you.
Amazing. Let's see. Oh, why am I still pinned? Hold on. I don't like this at all. Okay. Yeah, there we are. Okay. So now I can see everybody again. Thank you all so much for coming on. We had a really big group. It was over 30 people. So thank you again. And we'll be doing this again next month. If you think of any career avenues that you want to talk about, please feel free to drop it in the app, and the BWICR app, because we're going to start actively looking for people that we want to speak with starting now, so that we can kind of get more energy going so we can double this number for next month. Courtney, how are you doing? Thank you so much for coming on and helping me tag team these questions.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for sharing this space with me. I really appreciate you. I love being with you. I love chatting with you.
No, thank you. And thank you for sharing your personal story. Right? A lot of times we don't get to share that because we just think we come in here and it's like professional stuff, but like we have lives outside of clinical
Okay.
research, right? You know what I mean?
Whole lives, and we be struggling too, you know.
Come on.
I felt like I was fighting for my life all week this week.
I feel you. So we need to hold each other up. Again, for those of you, because I see some of your names that are here today, but I didn't see you at Wind Down Wednesday yesterday. So just know that there's a Wind Down Wednesday that happens every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for about an hour, where we just come connect. It's almost like this little conversation right here. Come connect with each other, share how we've been doing, professionally, emotionally, things like that. Just to have a safe space for us. And thank you, Danielle, for giving us that space here. So again, I see people still dropping, so I'll just hang out for a couple minutes. Otherwise, thank you all so much. And make sure you join the LinkedIn groups if you haven't for BWICR, Black Women in Clinical Research, the Facebook group, join the page, do all of those things so you can stay abreast of all the things that are going on. It's a lot going on. And Danielle only put it in the chat. Second annual BWICR annual conference is happening in Atlanta. I want to say it's the West End, November 8th through the 11th. It's going to be a jam. So
a whole jam. Get your tickets. The link is in the chat.
Yes, join the app. Join the app as well.
Yes.
So again, thank you all for being here.
Yes.
Go eat food, all that good stuff. So yeah. I made
I'm gonna go cook, shuffle some pots.
Oh my God. That's right. I already cooked. My food waiting for me on my stove. Okay.
My food is waiting too. All right. Thank you so much, ladies.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
All right. People leaving. I'm going to give it one more minute and then I'll let everybody go. If anybody wants to come off mute and say, hey, bye, all that good stuff, that's totally fine as well. Again, thank you all so much for coming. This was a great turnout. So I know it was kind of last minute to even. Amber Lee, I see you. Are you my Instagram boo? Yes, you are. I hope you're doing well. You have to come off mute. It's totally fine.
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, great. I'm glad you could make it. I actually talked about you to Danielle Mitchell, who's the founder of this group, who just came on. I was like, no, there's somebody from Instagram that actually was like, I want to come on. And so thank you so much for even for having the time to be here. No, thank you so much. I hope you got a little glimpse of what we do and, things like that. So.
Yes, ma'am. I'm actually looking for a mentor now because, like I told you, I am in clinical research and I just started about 7 months ago, so I'm still fairly new.
Okay, you think you're new, but 6 months is a long time, right? Because it's such a niche market that 6 months, I'm telling you, someone who doesn't know anything about research wouldn't even know what you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
What, data what? But yeah, no, so this group again, so we do have an app, but before you even get there, because I know you're just kind of coming on, really go to our LinkedIn group and our Facebook group because we're very active in there as well.
Okay.
People drop their LinkedIn, kind of link with them. You can definitely link with me on my LinkedIn as well. We're already Instagram friends, but you can be my government too. And we can link like that. And we're always here. We're here every Wednesday too, just to talk about how jobs we're looking for, jobs we want to leave, things like that as well. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everybody, I'm going to go. So I'm going to end the group. But again, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. All right. So bye, everybody. Have a good Memorial weekend.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.